Hello, good morning, and welcome to the Dailies on network television, where we look at some of the happenings on the papers. Quite a number of issues which we feel are very interesting, and you can do well to drop your comments and your views. I am Sarah Elisha Dasha. I'll be in the program alongside Rachel Chansey. Good morning.
Morning, sir.
All right, we have quite a number of stories on the paper, and we will love to start with the Nigerian newspaper.
The big story on the paper: federal government not responsible for hike petrol price. Minister is saying that we are not at our full market price of petrol yet. This is a statement from the NNPC VP. ACCI warns of looming economic crisis as taking calls for enhanced support for private sector, commends Dangote refinery. On Rivers crisis, Clark calls for Wike's arrest over inciting comment to set PDP governed states on fire. Don't let flood leave you unprepared, NEMA alert states. The Lagos state government signs memorandum of understanding with MOFI, Chinese firm, as Green Line Metro project takes off. You can find details on page 5. CBN PMI signals economic rebound after year-long contraction. Augusto and Co. upgrades Odua's investment rating to A+. Women directors urged to lead in age of AI, DEI, ESG for sustainable business growth. You can find details on page 6, and that's all the news on Nigerian News Direct.
On this newspaper, Nigerians face hurdles with the new UAE stringent visa policy. Travel agency lament fewer bookings on Emirates against the Barca. Emirates sell tickets in dollars to Nigerians, data found in the paper. Still on Daily Independent newspaper, Clark asks the IGP to arrest Wike over threat to put fire in PDP states. Describe the statement as treason. You can read detail in the paper. The big story for the paper here is saying Tinubu tax NNPCL others to address fuel scarcity pricing, with the writer saying federal government advises against panic buying, claim PMS availability. Says petrol will be available throughout country by weekend. We hope for that as well. To allow Dangote refinery set petrol prices from October. New petrol price does not reflect the market reality, lament NNPCL. Reveal it has supplied 30 million barrels of crude oil to Dangote refinery. More detail found on page 29. Still on Daily Independent, we have CSO give federal government 7 days to address all #embed governance cases. Condemn repression of civil democratic voices, crippling economic policies. Burkina Faso introduces a new passport without the ECOWAS logo on it. Then we have Xi Jinping pledges $50 billion for Africa to shore up China influence. Tinubu advocates collaboration to attain global prosperity. Reps Minority Caucus asks the federal government to reverse petrol price hike. Data found on page 6. As well, we have NNPP sack executives in 5 states, and we have NNPCL yet to lift our products coming from the Dangote refinery. Downside of the paper, petrol price, commuters stranded, businesses paralyzed as transporters protest in Kwara State. Data found on page 6. We have a picture story where we can see the governor of Katsina State alongside the former vice president arriving at the Ozibanjo Survival Airport. You can do well to get the paper and read more detail of stories of interest to you.
On First News newspaper, arrest Wike, charge him for treason, Edwin Clark tells IGP. Nigerians going through a lot. Revert to old petrol price, reps begs federal government and NNPCL. ECOWAS committed to good governance and combating terrorism, President Tinubu is saying. No fuel lifting yet, contract negotiations with NNPCL ongoing, statement from Dangote refinery. ICPC questions Indige over alleged corruption in NSITF contract awards. The big story on the paper, Yoruba elders urge Tinubu, act now, Nigerians suffering deeply, no light, no fuel, no food. Petrol will be available by weekend, Petroleum Minister assures Nigerians. Heartbreaking loss, how FUNAB varsity student was gruesomely murdered. Putin pledges backing for Kamala Harris in US 2024 election. We have a picture where we can see Governor Alex Oti warmly welcomes Dati Baba Ahmed as Peter Obi looks on with a smile during the Labour Party's extended stakeholders meeting in Abia that took place on Wednesday. And that's all the news on First News newspaper.
Right, let's take a look at another paper, which is the Guardian newspaper, Skilled Workforce. Construction site follow as reverse migration devaluation hit real estate, where we are saying we're seeing here that at there's a picture story here, so you can read more detail of that. My patience running out, Apga Chair 1 Soludu. You can read that on page 3. Days after Mafa massacre, Boko Haram hits Yobe again. Please, we hope the government really pay attention. It's sad while this community is yet to recover and then we're having another attack again on innocent citizens. We plead on the federal government as well as state government to please do well to protect lives and properties over there. Still on the Guardian newspaper, Nigerians bleeding from economic policy, YCE, MBA doctors tell Tinubu. Federal government backtracks may lift the age restriction for WAEC SSCE exams. Concerning the petrol, federal government claim prices not being set, anticipate availability by weekend. Atiku faults Tinubu's focus on protesters above security reforms. And we have concerning the Bank of Industry raises 1.43 billion euros via syndicated global loan. Concerns as Naira weakened to 1,639 Naira to a dollar amid fuel price hikes. Threat to PDP governors, we have the NYLF clerk call for Wike sack, arrest and prosecution. Detail found on page 29, and that's all on Guardian newspaper.
On Leadership newspaper, Bank of Industry raises 1.43 billion euros global loan syndication drive. Details of this loan can be found on page 19. Inmates get 50% raise in feeding allowances. We have trending Nigeria may be third largest debtor to World Bank coming from IDA, and number non-oil sector records $2.7 billion receipts. You can find trend and numbers on page 2. The big story on the paper for crisis, Shetima Simmons Lukobori Kyari NSA. Demand explanation on new pump price, commuters stranded as transport fares soar, lawmakers condemn price hike. Bandits abduct 19 persons in Kaduna village. While we are yet to kick off food import waiver coming from customs, you can find details to why they haven't started on page 7, and that's all the news on Leadership newspaper.
On the Blueprint newspaper, NAFTA destroyed 2.6 billion naira worth of fake products in Southeast. NNPCL absorbs 600 naira on every liter of fuel in 1 year. This is a report. Concerning sport, where we have AFCON qualifiers, Super Eagles determined to make great start, and you can read that because they will be playing against Benin Republic. Do well to read detail of that. NNPCL supply 30 million barrels of crude oil to Dangote, 17.6 million for September and October. With the writer saying National Oil Corps yet to leave petrol from us coming from Dangote. PDP Afenifere urge the fuel price increase reversal. Detail found on page 8. We have bandits revisit Kaduna journalist community, kidnap neighbor's wife and son, with the writer saying abduct another 15 in 3 houses. The sad one is security taking different turns as well on states. Africa-China trade hits $280 billion. Tinubu harps on non-interference. As well, we have don't further increase VAT, expert caution federal government. Fairer competitive food market key to ending global. You can read that story in the paper. And we have a picture story where we can see the president and other stakeholders after a meeting in Beijing, China yesterday. And that's all on Blueprint newspaper.
On the Nation newspaper, how social media is fueling banditry by army. You can find details on page 6. Court fixes Thursday to hear application on forfeited assets, still on the Emefiele case. Board of Bank of Industry raises 1.43 billion euros in global loan syndication. More stakeholders reject LP caretaker committee. You can find details of both stories on page 7 and 6. Lagos Chinese firms sign pact on 68-kilometer green rail line. The big story on the paper, why Dangote refinery petrol is yet to hit market. Agreement on pricing template between firm, government yet to be reached. Government rolls out sales of 30,000 MT of rice for 40,000 naira. You can start with the details on the front page. Prosecution of Britain orders for treason in order, says U.S. mayor and ex-British envoy. You can find details on page 5, and that's all the news on the Nation newspaper.
On Matrix newspaper, Dangote refinery to set petrol prices starting October is a report. You can do well to start on the front page and continue on page 3. Victor Osimhen hits training ground ahead of AFCON qualifier versus Benin Republic, detailed on page 20. Nigerian's crude oil production reaches 1.66 million barrels per day, with the writer saying refinery site with a capacity of 2 million liters per day was dismantled to Rivers. This is coming from the NCS. Federal government begins sale of rice at 40,000 naira to hungry Nigerians with need. So if you have your need, you can actually have access to this rice. You can read detail of that on page 9. Concerning tax waiver, why Finance Ministry delayed implementation of Tinubu's directive on food imports. You can read why they did that on page 9 as well. Tinubu moved to address fuel price hike, direct Shetima to meet with stakeholders, with the writer saying, we are working to ensure fuel availability and price stability. Ties Dangote petrol price to forex rate, NNPC yet to leave our petrol coming from Dangote refinery. Petrol prices are determined by free market forces coming from the NNPC Limited. Concerning Rivers local government poll, court reverses judgment in APC suit against INEC. And we have summer sale benefit African Airlines with 7.4% surge. First Bank embarks on campaign against cybercrime surge. You can read that on page 3. We have other stories on the front page of the paper, which I feel you should do well to get the paper in more detail of any of the story that is of interest to you.
On Daily Sun newspaper, Clark writes IGP demands Wike's arrest over threat to PDP governors, describes ministers put fire in their state comment as treasonable. The big story on the paper, Northern elders warn against deal with bandit leader Turji. The writer says insists suspect must face law, caution Tinubu against reconciling with him as national security is at stake. Indume rallies military to clear Boko Haram terrorists from Sambisa forest. Presidential system of government breeds dictatorship, says Agabi ex-AGF. Federal government agreed not to increase petrol price. NLC insists Tinubu didn't betray or deceive anyone on fuel price, a statement from TDF. Treason trial of Britain, orders in order, says ex-British envoy and US mayor. While INEC will continue to encounter challenges in conducting election, statement from Yakubu. On Rivers LG polls, court reserves judgment in APC suit against INEC and others. 2,776 killed, 16,309 injured in road crashes in 7 months. FRSC launches app to reduce accidents, and we are looking forward to seeing how this app would help. Details of this story can be found on page 4. Still on Daily Sun newspaper, 885 naira per litre petrol price unrealistic, statement from NNPCL to supply Dangote 17.8 million barrels of oil in 2 tranches. NDLEA denies allegation of lopsided appointment and nepotism. Details of their statement can be found on page 5, and we have a picture in the paper where we can see the former Minister of Justice and guest speaker Kanu Agabi And we have presiding Bishop, the Redeemed Evangelical Mission, Bishop Mike, and his wife, Bishop Peace, chairman of the occasion. And then we have Mr. Atedo Peterside and special guest Professor Akachi at the 23rd Mike Okonkwo Annual Lecture, Team Nigeria's Pathway, Diagnosis and the Prescription. This took place in Lagos yesterday, and that's all the news on Daily Sun newspaper. Which I just want us to talk a bit
concerning the issue of insurgents and terrorist attack in various places. We already saw one of the papers where Yobe is being attacked again. And then as well here we're seeing Northern elders warning against dealing with bandit leader, and we're seeing here cautioning the president not to reconcile with it, because that will put our security, national security at stake as well. Yeah. And you just can't help but ask question what really is happening. Sometimes when you talk about it, it looks as if you're repeating yourself over and over concerning issues, and you sound like we're beginning to sound like a broken record about things we've been talking about concerning what is needed to be done. And the fact that Nigerians cannot help but feel as if the government is romancing this terrorists because the needed action is not being taken, and then you just can't help but wonder, why do we have this issue thriving? And here we're having Indume rallying the military to clear Boko Haram from Sambisa Forest. We remember where we saw the military coming with certain successes, saying they were able to have access to the forest and then they were able to clear certain bandits. But we know that, just like you said, when we are dealing with terrorists, we're talking about them taking over entire territory, and that's why they always come in their numbers, making sure they take charge of an entire community, sometimes even an entire local government area, and making people not to have access to it. For a while, we've not seen what is happening in Benue, but I believe it's not as if these bandits have left there. Yeah. We saw what happened even in Bokos of Plateau State. And then scores of attack left, right, and center. So whether we're talking about bandits, or we're talking about Boko Haram, or we're talking about kidnappers over there in the south, but it's one thing that is very vital and important, the fact that we need the government to be on their A game when it comes to dealing with this issue of insecurity, because when we have insecurity, definitely other things cannot thrive. Students can't go to school, farmers can't go to their farmlands, and what that entails is that we keep going backward when you talk about development. And then when you talk about food, that is to say that there's going to be food scarcity, and as well, even if the food is available, it's going to be very expensive. Insecurity when it comes to food as well. So it breaks my heart when we keep seeing that the people who are meant to face the law are not facing the law. Sometimes we see them be rehabilitated, and I'm asking, people who are meant to go through rehabilitation are not going through rehabilitation, and people that are meant to are the ones that are being scot-free and all of that. So we are calling on the government. I keep saying that we're just doing our job as the fourth arm of government in this place, whereby we need to draw the attention of the government and being the middleman here between the masses as well as the government, to tell the government this is what the people need you to do, and we hope that you can do that. A lot, we see one of the papers saying no food, no light, no petrol, as well no security. So what are we saying? Where do you want Nigerians to run to for safety, whereby everywhere is proving abortive? So we hope the government rise up to their responsibility. We'll keep reminding you, your number one work is to protect lives and protect property. If you cannot do that, something is wrong somewhere. So we hope to see them putting on their cap on to work, because that is what is expected of them to do.
2 days back, when we talked about the attack on Mafa community, border community between Yobe and Borno, we clearly stated that, you know what, the federal government has failed in its responsibility, and by the federal government, we're talking about the army, the military here, have failed in its responsibility in caging Boko Haram to the confines of Borno and Sambisa. When you isolate these people, you get an edge over them, but the moment you allow them move to another place, you are allowing them to spread. And I remember making a statement and saying, I wonder what community will be next, because now they have moved. And we can see that shortly after, 2 days later, we have seen that another community now in Yobe, not Borno anymore, have been attacked. And it will definitely be not far from our community, because they are moving and taking scores along with them concerning having control over a territory. And of course, you know, you can't grab a land without killing its owner. It's not going to happen. two people cannot coexist on a place, the owner and an intruder. So for you to own it, you have to take out the owner to become the owner of that place and all of that. And as far as we are concerned now, we are not only looking at Sambisa Forest, we are looking at where they are now. They might not even be that much in the Sambisa Forest like before, because we know that terrorism have taken new forms and shapes over the years. Herdsmen attack, bandits and all of that. These are people that after a while have also spread into doing other things. So is above Sambisa Forest is now where have these people moved? Because if these people left Borno and now they are in Yobe, then you can't just say clearing them in Sambisa. It's now following their trend and stopping them from going to possible places. The longer the government takes in curbing one problem, it spreads. And this is what we are facing right now regarding terrorism, is that it has spread. And if we do not go ahead of them, it will keep spreading until it gets to the point that we might need intervention. I think we're already at the point where we need aid concerning combating terrorism. But I think the Nigerian government wants to be on top of the matter. And so far, so good, they are failing. They are not competent in combating Boko Haram terrorism in this country. It shouldn't be above them, but for some reason, it's proving otherwise, that the government cannot handle it. Because if you can, why didn't you stop it from spreading across the country? Because it is spreading like wildfire. It's only a matter of time before we will start seeing more and more attacks in Yobe, because the numbers by the community and people who were able to witness it were over 50 Boko Haram terrorists moving on their bikes and motorcycles and trucks and all of that, about 50. And now they have moved past 50 armed people can do a lot of damage. And you don't know, they are clearing paths for those who would follow
after.
Yes, exactly. That is what is happening. So the government needs to be ahead. If the Nigerian government is not ready to be ahead of these terrorists, then we still have a long way to fighting terrorism in the country.
And I remember we listed some of the ways to fight them. I think it's not just over for you to go to Sambisa and clear the terrorists. But I think it's important that you look for their source of funding, because they can't function without their guns, they can't function without food, they can't function without water, they can't function without light. And for them to be thriving the way they are thriving, that is to say they have all of this thing, they are comfortable. So I think the government needs to also take a step further, make sure you frustrate every of their plans. I think when you do that, we're already dealing with the problem from the roots. Not just because when you kill this one, they have recruited other people. We saw people as young kids, as young as 7, 10 be recruited, and they can shoot you mercilessly without feeling any remorse whatsoever. So we look forward to that as well. Well, let's take a look at another paper, which is the Punch newspaper, where we have 63 TCN towers destroyed in 8 months coming from the federal government. Well, detail of that of page 19 of the Punch newspaper. Massive flooding to hit 7 states soon, says the government. And we are seeing NEMA telling people to please be prepared for this. ICPC grills in Gigi over the NSITF contract. You can find that on page 14. The ex-speaker is saying APC chances getting brighter. As well, concerning Edo elections, still PDP will ensure continuity in governance, says Godalo. You can find that on page 12. NNPC ties Dangote petrol price forex rate, with the rider NNPC begins lifting Dangote refinery petrol September 15. Vessel begins offloading, queues worsen. Terrorism financing, police to squeeze Ajero September 25th. Again, concerning that, you can read on page 7. PSP officials condemn members' arrest over land dispute. Reps back ban on under 18 SSCE UTME candidates. So we're seeing the possibility that they might reverse the issue of saying that you must be up to 18 before you get to the tertiary institution or to write YF. So we'll keep our fingers crossed and see what the new update will be concerning that. You do well to read that on page 11. We can see the Vice President trying to meet with some of the stakeholders regarding security as well as the challenging of petrol prices and all of that in Abuja in the presidential villa yesterday. And that's all on the Punch newspaper.
On Daily News Hub, Commonwealth Secretary General Gambian Group opposes Foreign Affairs Minister's candidacy petition GHOGM. The big story on the paper: scarcity fuel will be available by weekend, Minister assures Nigerians. After meeting Shetima, Ribadu Kari and others, where we can see a picture showing that meeting. The writer says Tinubu orders NNPCL stakeholders to address fuel scarcity and pricing. LP meeting convened by Abia governor is illegal, says Abure. Obasanjo, Sambo, Osibajo, Zulum, Kondo, Yar'Adua's family in Katsina. Fuel price hike have killed our businesses, transporters and artisans lament. Federal government increases prison inmate feeding allowance by 50%. Army arrests suspected killer of FUNAP student kidnapped in Lagos. Galatasaray to cough 10.6 billion naira at Osimhen completes loan move. On banditry, we are not afraid to die, Bello Turji dares Nigerian government in new video. Burkina Faso issues new passport without ECOWAS logo. Still on the paper, NNPCL supplied Dangote refinery 30 million barrels of crude oil. NNPC yet to start lifting our petrol. Statement from the Dangote Group, and that's all the news on Daily News Hub newspaper.
Right, I think we should take a break at this moment just to let you go through some of the stories we have been looking at concerning the meeting the Vice President is having with the stakeholders regarding the petrol, the pricing, as well as we are having the Minister assuring Nigerians that petrol will be available by the weekend. So hopefully by the end of today to tomorrow, we'll begin to see tankers coming in to uplift some of this petrol, because it's important for our daily activities, as well as we're looking at the issue of banditry, insecurity. We're seeing that again, there was an attack in Yobe State. So we would love to hear your views concerning security as well. When we come back, we will continue with the paper review. Please stay tuned with us.
Make your everyday informative, make your everyday count. Know your world, daily affairs, national and international, with authentic news events as they unfold on Global News and Zoom on Nigeria, Monday to Friday at 1 p.m.
Welcome back. It's still the Dailies. We have been looking at a number of stories on the paper regarding scarcity of fuel, which we are seeing the minister promising that petrol will be available by the weekend. The Vice President meeting with other stakeholders, and we're seeing NNPC saying that, the price of fuel, they have nothing to do with it. It's being determined by the market forces. So quite a number of conversations. We would love you to dive into it, drop your comment and your views. I still have Rachel with me. Thank you so much.
You're welcome, Celine.
All right, let's continue with the paper review. We're looking at the Vanguard newspaper. Insecurity, farmers' headers clash depress agri sector, coming from sector GDP. Insecurity, farmers' headers clash depress agri sector GDP. Detail found on page 19. Coming from FOCAC, Africa-China Trade Partnership hits $280 million. Army arrests student over kidnapped murder of FUNAP student. We saw that the student was being killed on how we even despite collecting the ransom, we're saying that the kidnappers still went ahead to kill her. So we do well to read detail of that on page 6. Uncertainties surround petrol supply from Dangote refinery amid ongoing scarcity. Reps, NBA, PDP and others demand petrol price hike reversal, with the writer saying federal government not fixing petrol prices coming from the minister. We have PMS price determined by free market forces, NNPC saying. Further hike looms as NNPC says 897 naira to a litre, not market reflective. Federal government economical withdrawals on local refining fuel price subsidy coming from NECA. State of the nation, Nigerians are suffering. YCE tells Tinubu. You can see the picture story showing the worsening petrol scarcity, queues of people trying to see if they can actually get the PMS. Do well to read detail of that in the paper. As well, we see Super Eagles will prove self against Benin, Rwanda, Owuni assures. We can do well to read detail of that in the paper. And that is all on Vanguard newspaper.
On Punch Sport Extra, Claudius S. Lukman becomes 8th Nigerian Ballon d'Or nominee. An AFCON of Osimhen completes Eagles squad for Benin Rwanda tied. Why I rejected Eagles job, Cannavaro is saying. Under 18 Afro basket, Nigeria to face Angola after Egypt loss. Stephen Keshi Stadium wears now look for NYG. Stephen Keshi Stadium wears new look for NYG. The big story on the paper, Austin Opejoro exclusive. The first day I tried out, I made a fool of myself. A lot of people laughed at me, but some people told me to keep pushing because it looked like I could play basketball, but I just needed some coaching. My basketball journey from Okonu Wojo. You can find details inside the paper. Joshua still has 5 fights before retirement. Heartland will be ready for a Yimba with the coach Omunike is assuring us. Brentford chief explains on Yeka's exit. Details can be found on page 7. Coco Golf lacks confidence, a statement from Serena. Martha joins Australian club. Pedri hails flick for Barker's flying start. Details can be found on page 6. And the last story, Transport submit urban offer. And that's all the news on Punch Sports Extra.
On Business Day newspaper, reforms fail to leave Nigerians health insurance coverage. Federal government molds health insurance as requirement for owning a bank account and travels. Federal government molds health insurance as a requirement for owning a bank account and travels. You can start reading on the front page and do continue on page 31. How NNPC subsidiaries incur 22 trillion naira debt in 1 year. You can read detail of that. We have Bank of Industry secures 1.43 billion euro syndicated loan to boost Nigerian business. 142.5% subscription shows investor confidence in Bank of Industry and the economy, coming from Olusi. Detail found in the paper. Investors lock in T-bills amid market optimism. AC turns luxury as petrol scarcity bites ride-hailing drivers. AC turns luxury as petrol scarcity bites ride-hailing drivers. So that is to say, for those who mostly maybe all for these trying to boot a boat or whatever, we're saying that drivers right now turn off the AC because it's luxury. As a result of the petrol scarcity, you can do well to grab the paper and read more detail of stories of interest to you.
On Sporting Sun newspaper, the big story ahead of Nigeria-Benin Republic clash. Iguavoin drills Super Eagles with cold buckets of water. Talks top ahead tomorrow's clash. On Potem Award, Haaland, Saka, Palmer, others at war. Osimhen lands in Super Eagles nest. Details can be found at the back page. Lazio registers Dele Bashiru for Europa League. Cannavaro, they are rejected Super Eagles job. Vinicius still in pain over racism. Messi among greatest 4 of all time, a statement from Ronaldo. Rodrigo slams Ballon d'Or shortly. Salah not ready to quit Liverpool. You can find that story inside the paper. Minimum top 5 Neymar react to Rodrigo's Ballon d'Or nomination. Uganda athlete dies days after boyfriend set her on fire. You can find this sad story at the back page. My fear against Joshua, the boy is just saying. Details can be found at the back page, and that's all the news on Sporting Sun newspaper.
All right, let's take a look at another newspaper, which is the New Telegraph newspaper, where we have controversy trails World Bank $433 million fund for Nigerian farmer census. You can start reading that on the front page. And a report came in here that says federal government to allow Dangote refinery fix the PMS price. So we keep our fingers crossed to see what will be the price coming from Dangote. Tinubu to global leaders embrace multitarism, reject protectionism. You can do well to read that on page 2. Nigeria, Angola explore Bassa for mutual benefit. Leave flood-prone areas, Nema urges Benue, Kogi, Anambra residents. So if your state is among those, please, for those who are living by the riverside, anywhere that is prone to flooding, do well to leave. I believe that the government of those states have provided a safe place for their residents to go while this flood is ongoing. Obasanjo, Ozibanjo, Zulum and others pay their tribute to Hajia Yar'Adua. Data found on page 3. And the scarcity of fuel, Lukuberi meets Shetima Ribado promises availability of fuel this weekend. Says the government not fixing prices, sector deregulated already. Reverse insensitive price hike now, Reps Kakos tells Tinubu, coming from the minority in Reps. Transporters stop operation in Kwara as there was a protest regarding the price of petrol. You read that on page 2, 4 and 29. And Rivers local government poll court reverse judgment in APC suit against INEC and others. Some Nigerians backdate firearms license coming from the police. We have federal government may exempt exceptional intelligent children from 18 years coming from WAEC and NICO limit. So for others that are exceptional, they might not be included. Do well to read that on page 4. Arrest Wiki over threat to put fire in states, Clark tells the IGP. Substandard certificate, OPS speak on degrees from Benin Republic and others. Say productivity key for employers. Data found on page 3. We have a study that says air pollution linked to health risks and death. So we do well to be careful of what we inhale and then keep our environment clean from any air pollution. Data found on page 26. We have the picture story where we can see the Lagos State Governor together with the Finance Minister and other stakeholders during the agreement they had in China. And that's all a New Telegraph newspaper.
On this day newspaper, Bank of Industry raises 1.43 billion euros in global loan syndication drive. Offers oversubscribed by 42.5%. Lukpobiri meets Owando team says Nigeria oil firms capable of taking over IOC's assets. Federal government begins sales of 30,000 metric ton of milled rice at subsidized rate to Nigerians. FOCAC, Tinubu loots $280 billion economic trade partnership between Africa and China. Jinping pledges $50 billion financial aid for Africa, lists 10 partnership action plans between China and Africa. At the heart of China-African relation is a foundation built on trust and mutual respect, statement from President Bola Tinubu. You can start with the details on the front page and continue on page 5. The big story on paper, NNPCL is saying we are working to resolve supply shortfalls, blames scarcity on FX illiquidity. Says it prefers PMS price determined by market forces, announces provision of additional 17.6 million barrels of crude oil to Dangote refinery. NNPCL yet to lift our petrol, discussion still ongoing, says new refining facility. Shetima makes Lukpobiri Mele carry on fuel price increase. More details of this story can be found on page 5, and we have a picture story where we can see at the philanthropy dinner with Bill Gates, where we can see Bill Gates alongside Aliko Dangote, and that's all the news on this day newspaper.
Let's take a look at the Daily Times newspaper. Rivers local government election, court reserved judgment in APC suit against INEC and others. And this is coming from the Federal High Court in Abuja. They have reserved that judgment in the suit filed by the All Progressive Congress against INEC. You do well to read that story in the paper. Tunji Gan must face justice, not reconciliation, Northern elders are saying. We're seeing them being bold and confident in a video, sending it to the federal government that they are not afraid to die. That means they have somebody somewhere who is always there covering up for them. So we hope that the military and other security agencies will find out what really is going on regarding that. You do well to read that on page 6. Not shy, afraid of constitution review, restructuring agitation, coming from the Ariwa Consultative Forum. The big story for the Daily Times is Clark to the IGP, telling him to arrest Wike for threatening to make PDP state ungovernable. Says the FCT minister, fractional PDP Congress in Rivers in New Litty. I'm out of active politics but can't keep silent on anything that affects Rivers and Nigeria, and we hope that there should be a law concerning careless talks coming from politicians regarding that. So we hope something will be done regarding that threat coming from the FCT minister. Tinubu to African leaders, we must embrace multilateralism, innovate to secure sustainable peace and development. You do well to read detail in the paper. As well, we see EFCC warned designated non-financial businesses operators against money laundering. You can read that on page 10. We have a picture story where we can see the Comptroller General of Customs, Bashir, with other officials during a press conference on the seizure of some illicit good at Area 2 Command in Port Harcourt, River State. We can see them over there with some of the seized items. So you can do well to get the Daily Times and read more detail of any of the story that is of interest to you. And that's how far we can go as well on the program, the Dailies. Thank you, Rachel, for doing this with me.
You're welcome, Celine.
As well, thank you to our viewers, our supporters, as well as to the entire production crew. We look forward again to doing this next week with you. Do have a blessed weekend ahead.